Underfoot, The Gutter King, Book 1, Chapter 2, The Live One. Going down the ramp took longer than coming up. That was the first rule of his old life reasserting itself in the new one. Toward the emergency, you move like water. Once you're in it, you move like a surgeon. The breathing led him. It was a bad sound, wet and small, with a catch at the top of every inhale. And Ben had heard enough bad breathing in 8 years to build a taxonomy of it. This one said, airway partly closed. It said fluid where fluid shouldn't be. It said, above everything else, hurry without looking like you're hurrying. He found the source halfway down the fresh spill of bodies, pinned beneath the cold weight of 2 others. Young. Ratkin like him, in the way that a battered stray is like a show dog. Smaller than his own new body, fur the color of wet ash, dressed in a patched vest with a dozen little loops and pouches sewn into it, most of them torn empty. A wire snare had bitten a raw line into the young one's throat. Someone had cut the snare's anchor and thrown him on the cart without checking what the wire hadn't finished. Ben's sight told him the rest, chart notations pinned in soft light against the dark. The ember in this one's chest was low and stuttering, like a candle in a doorway. Black threads of bait poison webbed out from the belly, but slow, sluggish, half spent, as if the body had been fighting it for hours and was winning on points. The real trouble sat higher, the throat swelling around the wire's line, and a rib pushed inward where a boot or a cartwheel had stood on him.
Okay.
Ben said softly, in the voice he'd used through 900 doors.
Hey, I've got you. You're not alone. I'm going to touch your neck. It's going to be rude of me, and you're allowed to file a complaint.
The wire had to come off first. It had sunk in and stuck, blood-glued. His new claws turned out to be precision instruments. That was one for the tail side of the ledger, and he worked the snare loose a millimeter at a time, watching the ember, watching the swelling, talking the whole while about nothing. About how this was the worst lit clinic he'd ever worked in, about the state of the management, about how the young man was doing great, which was a lie, and doing better than most, which wasn't. The wire came free, the breathing opened by a fraction, the catch at the top of each breath stayed. Ben sat back on his haunches and made himself do the thing he had always been good at, the thing that had nothing to do with hands, the inventory of what you actually have instead of the list of what you wish you had. He had moss, the sharp-smelling kind he'd packed into his own shoulder, growing in fat, luminous pillows all over the pit's walls, which his nose kept insisting was clean in a way he had no business trusting and trusted anyway. He had corpse cloth, as much as he could bear to take. He had bone. He had wire now, coiled and bloody. He had a body full of someone else's instincts and a head full of protocols, written for a species neither of them belonged to anymore. And he had the pit's other tenants, which he discovered when he peeled back the young one's vest to check the rib and found 3 pale shapes the size of his thumb already at work on the older dead beside him, hooked mouthparts clicking. His new body knew them before he did. His lips pulled off his teeth in a reflex he didn't authorize. Charnel grubs. The word arrived from the vessel's old life the way the smell words did, unbidden and certain. Harmless to the living, said the instinct. Mostly, said the instinct's footnote. The nearest grub lifted its blind front end, tasted the air toward the young one's blood-wet throat, and started to inch.
No.
Ben said.
Absolutely not. This is a sterile field.
What happened next was not a fight. He refused to dignify it with the word then or ever. It was pest control performed by a shaking, exhausted man with a sliver of rib bone, 3 pale grubs, and then the 6 more that came when the first ones burst, all of it disgusting beyond the reach of his considerable professional vocabulary. When it was done, he was breathing hard and the young one's ember hadn't moved, and the air lit up with green.
You have slain. Charnel Grub X9 Level 1. Level up, you are now Level 4. You have unallocated attribute points.
He crouched there, dripping things he chose not to identify, and read the second line twice.
Him?
He said, pointing at his patient with a bone shard.
He's been dying since before I met him, and I've kept him alive for an hour with moss and manners. That's worth nothing. But 9 maggots.
He exhaled. Arguing with the sky was a rookie move. You triaged the world you had, not the one you wanted. Still, he filed the observation in the place he kept things that would matter later, and it felt heavy going in. The covenant paid for death. It did not pay for the other thing. Whatever was keeping score down here had decided which of the two was worth its silver, and Ben was already certain he was going to have a problem with that. The attribute screen unfolded when he prodded at the notice. A modest constellation of words and numbers hanging in the dark. Strength, a number that embarrassed everyone involved. Vitality, low. Agility and perception, both sitting well above the rest, the body's inheritance. 2 points, unspent, pulsing gently like a cursor. He thought about it the way he'd have picked equipment for a rig with a weight limit. Strength was tempting and useless. 2 points of muscle wouldn't move a cart. What kept his patience alive tonight was going to be his hands and his eyes and whether his own body quit on him. Vitality, both points. The screen folded away. Warmth moved through him, small but real, like soup on a double shift.
Don't tell anyone I did that.
He said to the young one.
I'll never hear the end of it.
He learned things in the next stretch of dark, working with his hands in the world's worst light. He learned that the moss chewed to paste. His molars did it easily, another unnerving gift, turned astringent and gluey, and set over a wound like a second skin. The vessel's instincts approved of this so strongly that he suspected he had not invented it, that somewhere above him lived ratkin grandmothers who would find his pride hilarious. He learned the young one's pouches had held a trade. 2 were snips of cured silk, 1 held a fire kit. 1, sewn shut and missed by whoever had emptied the rest, held dried leaves in a twist of paper that his nose read as bitter, clean, useful. The smell equivalent of a pharmacy shelf, even if he couldn't read the labels yet. A trapper then, or a gatherer. Somebody's apprentice. Somebody who was supposed to come home tonight. He learned that ratkin ribs were springy, which had saved this one's lung, and that a splint of bone and wire and corpse cloth would hold one in place if you swore at it enough. And he learned in the worst way what the sound of a tin whistle meant. It came down the tunnel from far off. 3 rising notes repeated. Every hair on his body stood up, and his new instinct said dog before his mind got a vote. But the whistle wasn't for him. It was calling. It was a man somewhere up the dark, whistling for a terrier that was lying across the pit's floor with a rib through its eye, and it was getting closer. Ben looked at his patient who could not run, could not walk, could not be moved fast without undoing an hour of work.
Okay,
He whispered.
new plan, we're furniture.
Moving him was 3 minutes of careful agony. Ben chose a spot near the wall where the older dead lay 2 deep, and he did the thing he would not think about directly while he did it. He arranged the dead over the living, loose, a lattice, faces turned mercifully away, until the young one was a shape among shapes with a clear channel of air to breathe through. The wet catch of his breathing was quiet. Quiet enough, it would have to be. Then it was his own turn, and the geometry was worse. He needed to see, which meant he needed his face at the surface of the terrible tide line, and he needed his own ember hidden, and he had no idea whether the men above could see embers at all, or whether that mercy was his alone. Lantern light spilled through the arch. 2 voices, the same 2, the count patter and the tally keeper, and Ben pressed himself down among the cold and made his breathing shallow and slow, the way he'd once taught a rookie to do around a bee.
Telling you Blue don't miss supper.
The first was saying. The whistle again, brutally loud in the brick throat of the place.
Blue, hop girl.
The light swung across the pit and stopped.
Hobbs' teeth?
Second voice said, gone flat.
That's Blue.
Boots on the ramp. The light came down among the dead, and Ben shut his eyes to slits and became, with everything in him, nothing. A boot planted itself close enough that he could smell wet leather and pipe smoke. The lantern's warmth passed across his fur like a hand. There is a way of being still that is the absence of motion, and there is another way that is a made thing, an act of will performed one muscle at a time. And somewhere in the middle of performing it, Ben felt something in his body click over, like a bone finding its socket, like a skill keyed to a lock. The green text bloomed politely behind his eyelids. He did not read it. He was busy.
Eyes punch through.
The first catcher said, low. Grief in it, real grief, and rage banked under the grief. Ben lay among the people this man had carted to a pit by the dozen and listened to him mourn a dog, and had the strange, dislocated thought that he was going to have to build a bigger theory of this world than the one he'd started with.
What does that, down here? Rats don't do that.
Spike rat might. Boar rat.
In a coal pit.
The boot turned a slow circle, grinding grit. The light crawled the walls.
Something's denned up in here, or something followed the carts in. Either way.
A long breath through the nose.
Vans'll want it dead before purge week proper. Can't run smoke crews through tunnels with a boar rat loose.
You want to tell him his numbers might come in shy because of a dog?
I want to tell him.
The first voice said, picking up the terrier's body with a gentleness that did not belong in this room.
That something in the south pits kills cleverer than a rat. He'll listen. He's a lot of things, Hob Vance, but he ain't careless.
The boots went back up the ramp. The light shrank and swung and was gone, and the dark came back down like a blessing. Ben let his breath out one spoonful at a time. Only then did he read the text, still waiting with the infinite patience of paperwork.
Skill gained, silent step, common. The Covenant acknowledges what the desperate have always known. The first wall is stillness. Skill rank increased, silent step, common, uncommon. Under a hunter's lamp, you did not exist.
2 boxes for one held breath. He was apparently very good at not existing. He decided he could unpack the philosophical weight of that particular talent some other night. The young one woke while Ben was uncovering him, which was both wonderful medically and terrible in every other way, because he woke the way anyone would wake beneath the dead, with a thin, shredded sound that Ben smothered gently with one hand while making the shh that is the same in every world.
You're safe. You're safe. Not a catcher. Look at me. I'm like you. You're out of the snare. You're patched. Breathe small. Your ribs cracked. Breathe small. There. There you go.
Eyes found him in the dark, huge and black and glassy with poison fever. Not tracking well enough.
You,
The voice was a ruin, wire bruised.
you're talking wrong.
I've been told.
Talk like a scribe, like a priest.
A weak cough that made the whole small body flinch, and Ben's hands moved on reflex, bracing the splinted side.
Where's Seth? The snare took me, and Seth ran.
I don't know.
Ben said, because 8 years had taught him which lies you never spin.
You're the only one I heard breathing. I'm sorry. I came for the one I could hear.
The young one stared at him for a long, fevered moment, and something in the look was older than the face. Down here, Ben understood. This was not a boy hearing news. This was a boy doing arithmetic he'd done before.
Rill?
He said finally, as if surrendering something.
I'm Rill.
Ben.
Ben.
The name came out bent by the gutter accent, Bane, and with it a frown, and the frown became a slow, fever-sluggish inspection. The wrong cadenced voice, the shoulder bandaged with moss and dead men's shirts, the workmanlike horror of the arrangements all around them.
What Warren are you?
I don't have one.
The eyes went wider, which he wouldn't have thought possible.
Warrenless.
Rill said it the way you'd say orphan and plague-touched, and be careful, all in one word. And then with the tactlessness of the sick and the young, the arithmetic visibly restarting behind his eyes,
You pulled me out of the tide. Warrenless, and you pulled me out.
as if the 2 facts came from different worlds and refused to sit in the same head.
I have a condition.
Ben said.
When I hear someone dying, I have to go be annoying about it.
Rill's laugh was one broken syllable, and it cost him a wince, and it was worth more to Ben than both level-ups. But the fever was dragging the boy back down even as his lips moved, and what came out next came slurred, at the fraying edge of sleep. in the tone of someone reciting a rule learned before they could walk.
Can't stay. Catchers smoke the south pits for purge week. Everything breathing comes up the bone way or doesn't come up.
His eyes fell shut.
Grey Mara's Warren, behind the false cistern. She'll want to know about the smoke. About Seth.
The words guttered.
Won't take you, though. Warren Law, nobody strange past the wall?
Then it's a good thing.
Ben said quietly, checking the ember. Low, steady now, banked against the dark. A candle someone had finally shut the door for.
That I'm extremely likable.
Rill was already asleep. Ben sat back and let his own body ring with every hour of the night at once. Above them, somewhere in the enormous dark, a bell counted out an hour he had no name for yet. A warren that would not take strangers, and a boy too broken to walk to it. Catchers coming back with smoke on a schedule he didn't know, hunting a clever killer that was him. A city stacked on top of it all, like a lid, and under everything, in the walls, in the word purge, the tally of a machine that paid for death and shrugged its saving. Ben Mercer looked down at his hands, strangers' hands, steady ones, and did what he always did at the bottom of the worst nights, which was to make the list smaller. One rib, one fever, one road, one door that wouldn't open. He talked his way through 900 doors.
Okay.
He told the dark and started building a stretcher out of wire and bone.